Hey, what's going on everybody? Gus here. How are you guys doing today? These are the TC-01. These little guys are IEMs from Tripowin. Yeah, that Tripowin, the IEM cable company. Yeah, they actually do IEMs. Well, they've made this, the TC-01. I was really surprised and pleasantly so, because I like Tripowin cables, so I'm expecting them to at least try to do a good job with the IEMs. But imagine my double surprise when I start to do a little bit of research and discover that the TC-01 isn't the first IEMs they've ever made. They actually made another one before, the TP10s, which were entirely powered by balanced armature drivers, which is not the case with this one. The TC-01 is an evolution of the TP10. Completely new design, new shell, new structure, new everything, new drivers, and a new and improved, because it's, smaller, price. The TC-01 cost $49, squarely in that $50 range, which is a pretty crowded space with a lot of big names. In terms of build, these are entirely made out of metal. But they're also pretty small and petite, which makes them light. Now that, together with the nice fit, because the stem is just big enough so that you guys can put them in your ears and they fit nicely to just sit there in the right spot, makes these actually pretty comfortable to use. And yes, those tests have been made with the included silicone tips and a couple of other silicone tips as well. I would personally not use them with foams, but we're getting to that when we talk about sound. This particular model is shiny AF because it's the silver one. They do have another which is a purple iridescent sort of look, and at least from photos it looks pretty sick, but I'm enjoying the sort of chrome vibe these got going on. It does look kind of nice, looks cool. Now the cable, well, it's Tripowin making their own IEMs and cable, so yeah, of course the cable is nice. It's not exceptional, but it's pretty good. You have a nice 3.5mm connector, which also is entirely made out of metal, kind of a brushed aluminum sort of look, with a strain relief right where it starts through the cable. It does have a nice break in the middle of the cable, going from a 4-weave to a 2-weave all the way to the IEMs. And these hooks are smooth, silky, and they're not trying too hard to stay in shape, which also allows them to, properly curve around your ears and make the whole experience a little bit more comfortable. Presentation is simple, but it comes with a set of silicone tips, a carrying case, plus the fact that the actual cable is really nice. Thumbs up for that. I have basically zero gripes with the entire build section. Actually, that's not true. I do have one gripe, but that also can be considered like a bonus in terms of security. But these connectors are really snug. You actually have to apply a bit of force to get them in place. Now, that has the negative part of feeling like you're maybe almost breaking something, but at the same time, these are not going anywhere. Try to do this with anything using MMCX connectors and your IEMs are going to fly off. These things are staying put, so extra security, I'd say. Now, this has been proven to be 100% psychological, but the smaller the IEM, the easier to drive I instinctively assume it's going to be. And these are not the easiest to drive IEM that I have ever seen, but they're pretty easy to drive. That's obviously because of the dynamic diaphragm-coated drivers that these things are using. But, okay, being easy to drive, being well constructed, and not necessitating you to bleed out money to be able to purchase them, because, $49, that's all just part of the equation. The other, really important part is how they sound. So, how about it? Well, they are actually pretty natural sounding. I mean, despite of a bunch of other stuff that I'm going to tell you guys, from this point onwards, I'd put them in that, natural sounding camp. Yeah. The star of the show, the real strength of the TC-01, lies on the mid-range. That's the leading role. Being really well supported by the low end that's doing a fantastic job as a supporting actor here. The treble is basically the supporting actor of the supporting actor, and it's doing a fantastic job of not trying to be something special and not screwing what it was supposed to be doing up. But let's begin talking about the low end, because it's really punchy, it's really fast, there's a lot of detail. Sub-bass region has a pretty impressive breadth. The overall range is way beyond what I expected for a $49 pair of IEM, especially one delivering this level of speed while only using dynamic drivers. And that level of detail is actually part of the story for the entire frequency range. But if that sort of all the time is something that bothers you, the TC-01 can be a bit fatiguing at times. And I say that because a couple of years back, this would have been a fatiguing headphone for me. Now, really kind of isn't. As soon as I got it out of the box, and this is something that I forgot to mention earlier, it was super muffled. Listening to anything on these was too fatiguing, but nothing that like 2 or 3 days of burning them in didn't actually solve. Like, mission accomplished. And before we get to the mids, that extra breath, that extra amount of low end is sort of why I usually don't, or actually never do, use the TC-01 with phone tips, because the low end becomes like too much all the time. Now, mid-range is excellent. It's warm, it's detailed, not pushed way too much in your face, but just enough that voices and vocals feel natural and well balanced, and they're smooth and nice to listen to, with a level of excitement, with a level of energy that just pushes everything to an extra level. The characteristics of the sound coming from the TC-01 are really pleasant. It's as if you're getting a very well balanced, very natural sounding environment or situation, and pushing a little bit of extra detail all across with a little bit of warmth to add in a different layer of smoothness to the voices, and a bit of extra low end creeping up just from that sub bass to, you know, give a little more body to what you're listening to. Now here we get into a situation that's more like exception versus the rule. The exception is that sometimes that extra bit of low end that the TC-01 usually brings up kind of misses the mark, and it steps way too much on the gas, and it just like takes over everything else for a brief period of time, because, you know, the speed of the TC-01 is remarkable for a pair of IEMs using only dynamic drivers, but it does happen sometimes. It's the exception. So that wouldn't necessarily count if you're looking for the overall picture. The rule is that it does a really good job with that extra level of low end. Now, soundstage is a nice surprise because it's like it exists. And second, it's not confined to your own headspace. Now, within that soundstage, imaging is on point. Not necessarily verticality, but from side to side and forwards and backwards, does a really good job. But separation within that imaging isn't like all that impressive. It's like instruments coming from your right, well, your left on the screen here. Stuff is coming from here to the other side. On other IEMs and other headphones, you maybe would perceive like two instruments this far apart from each other moving from one side to the other. With the TC-01, that distance between the instruments would be a little closer together. Not one on top of the other, but a little closer together. Imaging would still be fine, it's just that they wouldn't have that much separation between them. You get the point. And that's better than what a bunch of other IEMs and even headphones are capable of, even beyond a little bit of this price range. So these sound really quite alright. Just consider the burn-in as part of the unboxing process. Think of it as charging your device for the first time. You leave them for a full charge, burning them in for a couple of days, and then you start using them. So they're quite fun to listen to, and their strengths are definitely on that mid-range, bringing something extra to the table that, you know, just helps with the overall presentation. I know, I admit, I do compare basically everything below $50 to the 10T2s and to the Blonde BL03 and 05, but the Blondes, they don't have quite as much of a thick low end. Even though it does punch almost as fast as a TC-01, and the level of detail is par for the course on both cases. At the same time, the 03 and the 05 don't have that same warm presentation in the mid-range. And they act like they drank 16 gallons of coffee with Red Bull and went on to run a marathon. So even if one of the very, very good characteristics of the TC-01 being that punchy, like fast, speedy bass, I wouldn't put them in the same arena as the Blonde BL03 or 05. Because they sort of lean more toward a T2 scenario with all that warmth, but with a much heavier, much boomier, much more present low end. And the result is quite awesome. It doesn't execute soundstage, imaging, separation, and that warmth detail to the same level, and that relaxed, chilled vibe of the T2 isn't exactly the TC-01's cup of tea. It drank like 2 or 3 cups of coffee more than the T2, something like that, but it's almost there. And honestly, at this point and at this level of the game, being almost there in this comparison is already an achievement and a pretty big compliment if you ask me. With this level of energy and bringing this mix of quality, breadth, speed, detail, warmth, the way that these things command and bring a sort of a presence to the sound, the TC-01 is one heck of a little impressive IEM, and I love it. Like flat out, I love it. With this as a benchmark, I definitely want to see more of what Tripowin can cook in their sound lab. And that's been it. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, so like, subscribe, hit the bell, leave any comments or suggestions, and share the video as well if you enjoyed it. Really helps me out a lot and I appreciate it. Check out these other videos that might be of interest to you. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Gus, and I'll catch you guys later. I just tangled the cable. This is what happens when you put these things in your pocket. Between shots, between, you know, takes. This is a nightmare. Detangling IEM cables. Oh, crap.